Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another installment of the Stay Healthy at Home webinar series. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. So today's webinar title is Downsizing, How to Lower Your Carbon Footprint. The webinar runs from 2 to 3 o'clock today and is part of our Stay Healthy at Home series. My name is Ashley Ritchey, and I'm the director of the New Jersey Self-Advocacy Project, which has been a division-funded program of the ARC of New Jersey since 1983. My team and I support a statewide, the state's largest self-advocacy network, largest self-advocacy organization here in New Jersey. We provide comprehensive training and resources to New Jersey self-advocates, direct support professionals, and agency personnel statewide. The Stay Healthy at Home webinar series is part of our Healthy Lifestyles project. We have transitioned to fully virtual trainings, and again, we are here on GoToWebinar every Tuesday from 2 to 3 o'clock. So we appreciate your participation and invite you to check out the Stay Healthy at Home webpage for future training topics and the schedule. As I said, the Self-Advocacy Project has fully transitioned to virtual training. So we continue to offer free trainings for students and adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We have a host of topics, so I invite you to check out the New Jersey Self-Advocacy Project homepage for a full list of training topics, or to request a training at your program or virtual day program. We have a training portal set up where you can make those requests right through our website. So check that out. As always, we welcome questions and comments throughout the webinar. So if your question is not immediately answered or answered during the webinar, we are dedicating time before the end of our hour together to address questions that are posted in the questions box. No need to send duplicate questions. A member of our team is monitoring the questions box to make sure we address all relevant questions before we end our time together. We will also post the slides from this presentation on our website, and you can download them today by clicking on the Handouts tab and downloading the PDF of today's slideshow. Also, I hope that you will complete the survey at the end of this webinar, because we would love to know what additional training topics you'd like to see us address in future Stay Healthy at Home sessions. So today's discussion topics are all about how to lower our carbon footprint. Well, first, how to see what our carbon footprint actually is and how it has a direct impact on our planet, as well as practical ways that we can reduce our waste and adopt sustainable lifestyle habits. We may have grown up hearing a lot about reduce, reuse, recycle, but even that slogan has been updated. So there's lots happening in the realm of sustainability and making healthy choices for ourselves and our families, as well as our planet. And I'm really excited to talk about those things today. Just to start off, we individually can make an impact. So it's always important to continue advocating together as a group to make that larger impact, but we can make changes that will impact our planet and the health, again, of ourselves and our families. Today's training is not about adopting a quote unquote zero waste lifestyle. It's more about lowering the amount of waste that we produce as individuals and making better choices in terms of the products we consume and use on a daily basis. So let's start off with a quick poll here, just to get a baseline. So I'm going to launch the poll right now. It's going to pop up on your screen, and if you could just participate, we'll have the poll going for just a couple seconds here. I know we've got a nice group on today, so I hope that folks will participate. I'm just trying to figure out which of the following items do you own and actually use? All right, I'm going to share the results with everybody so we can all check this out. So half of the folks on the webinar today own and use a reusable water bottle. 10% are familiar with beeswax wrap or reusable sandwich bags, sometimes silicone sandwich bags, as well as cloth grocery bags. And I'm so happy to see that 30% of our attendees are using washable, reusable face masks. That is fantastic. We're going to talk about other options for reusable items in just a bit, but I'm really happy that we kind of have a baseline, and a lot of folks on today's webinar are familiar with these options instead of the one-use items. Okay, moving on. So let's get into it. I want to start off with a discussion on what a carbon footprint actually is. Because in order to know where you want to be and the changes that you might want to make, you've got to assess your current status and see where you are. When we think of a carbon footprint, we can really think about that as the impact of our actions on the planet. So it is the total amount of greenhouse gases, which include carbon dioxide and methane, that are produced by human activities, including our continued use of fossil fuels. So the average carbon footprint for an American is 16 tons. That amount may surprise you, and it is one of the highest rates or biggest carbon footprints in the world. When we talk about consumption of fossil fuels, we really can think about things like oil, crude oil, coal, and natural gas. Those tend to be the big three fossil fuels we think of. We use these fuels to heat our homes and apartments, gas up our vehicles, and for electricity to keep our houses warm and lit, as well as for cooking. There are other ways to bring electricity and heat into our homes and our cities, but alternative energy sources are not as widespread right now. So largely, especially in the US, a lot of people are relying on fossil fuels like oil, coal, and gas to do these things. So when we think, again, when we're looking at our carbon footprint, we want to make sure that we have a real grasp on how our individual choices and the things that we use every day impact the planet. So I found a really cool video I want to share with everybody. Let me turn up the volume.
The Simple Show explains the carbon footprint. This is you. You've probably been hearing a lot about climate change and how you should reduce your carbon footprint. But what is that exactly? Just like an actual footprint, it's a mark you leave upon the environment. No, not with your shoes, but with every action that releases carbons. Those are the harmful gases, such as CO2, which are pumped out by burning fossil fuels like oil and gas. The more fuel you use, the bigger your footprint will be. You may think that by driving your car, the only carbons you release come from the engine, but no. Consider the carbons that are emitted just to get fuel into the tank. From the energy needed to extract the oil from underground, the pollution caused by transportation and refinement, to the final delivery to your local petrol station. Not to mention the CO2 released by manufacturing your car in the first place. More than you thought, huh? So unless you live in a cave, you and everything you own has its own carbon footprint. Read a book, printing and distributing. It uses energy. Brush your teeth, and your utensils will have a history in a factory. Even something as basic as an apple could have traveled hundreds or even thousands of polluting miles to end up in your local supermarket. You see, it's pretty much impossible to leave no carbon footprint behind, but that's no reason to stop trying. Think about your actions and choices, and you'll be able to reduce your personal mark after all. That's how you really put the boot into climate change.
Okay. So I think that video really gives us a good idea of what a carbon footprint is. Again, an individual impact and collective human impact on the planet. So we're going to look at ways to calculate our personal carbon footprints. Because just know that every person's different, right? We're all living a different lifestyle. We're all driving different cars or using different modes of transportation. But ultimately, we all are impacting the planet. So again, fossil fuel use and electricity consumption are the big players in how much of an impact how big our carbon footprint is. And your carbon footprint can vary day to day, depending on how much of these resources you're using. And there are tools for calculating your average annual carbon footprint. So these calculations are approximate, they're not perfect, but knowing your number can give you a good baseline to measure your current activities and become more aware of how much CO2 your actions are generating. So once you know your carbon footprint, you can then figure out steps you can take to reduce that number. So the remainder of this presentation will focus on practical ways of downsizing, making that carbon footprint smaller, and as well as things that you can do at home, at work, and in your daily life to reduce your waste, the waste you produce, as well as adopt more sustainable habits. Again, when we think about a carbon footprint, it's really going to depend on a variety of factors, but a couple things that do come into play are how many people are living in your home, apartment, how big is your household? How efficient are your appliances? So that's everything from your, the big appliances like your fridge and your oven or stove, as well as smaller appliances like your toaster oven and your lamps. Your carbon footprint will also be affected by how much you drive or fly, what you eat, and how much you recycle. Let me just backtrack for a second. They mentioned this in the video, but what you eat, we talk about that a lot as part of the Healthy Lifestyles Project. It makes a big impact on your body and your overall health. But what you eat also has an impact on the health of the planet. Because as the video said, you think you're being healthy by eating an apple, but that apple might have been flown in from another country. So that's, again, consuming a lot of fossil fuels to get you an apple in the middle of winter here in New Jersey. So as much as possible, we can make a really big change by shopping locally for local produce. New Jersey is the garden state. So there's a lot of great farm stands and markets and just places that you can go in your community to find those resources that don't have to be flown in and again produce all of that carbon emission. So if you want to estimate your carbon footprint, here's two options that you can use. One is from the Environmental Protection Agency, which is a government agency, so you can use their carbon footprint calculator. And then there's also a carbon footprint calculator from carbonfootprint.com. And they're slightly different, but they're really asking you about, again, these different factors that play into the size of your carbon footprint. So you can check that out. It's, again, a really great way to figure out where you are right now and where you want to be in terms of sustainability. So I took a sample of the EPA's carbon footprint calculator. Let's take a quick look. So again, the goal is to reduce our emissions, right? Reduce the amount of CO2 that our actions produce and reduce the amount of fossil fuels that we rely on for different things in our home. So the first category here is heating and cooling. So they differentiate between free and then free actions that cost nothing to you and can make an impact on your carbon footprint and lower it, as well as things that might cost you some money, but will ultimately be more beneficial for lowering your carbon footprint and lowering the carbon emissions produced by that action. So for heating and cooling, the EPA suggests turning up your AC thermostat in the summer by at least a few degrees. So it will let you calculate, you can click up and down, if you typically keep your, I know this is a very individualized subject, but Some of us like it really, really cool. Some of us like it warmer. So depending on where you currently have your thermostat, you would plug that in and you can kind of toggle through and it will show you the estimated annual savings as well as the how much CO2, how much carbon emissions you're saving from being emitted into the environment. And also there is the suggestion of turning down your heating thermostat in the winter. And you can figure out where you are currently and where you might need to be to save some extra cash, as well as to save that carbon from being emitted. Looking at lighting, again, I just mentioned, you know, the number of appliances and the efficiency of appliances that you have in your home. That will impact your carbon footprint. So if you replace older incandescent bulbs with Energy Star lights, yes, it might cost you a couple extra bucks to buy those sustainable Energy Star lights, but over time, you may see a reduction in your electricity bill. So it's kind of figuring out in terms of what you can afford to do immediately out of pocket, but also the long-term savings to your wallet and the savings of CO2 emissions. Another free option is using the power management features on your computer or laptop. So, you know, every device is a little bit different, but basically if you currently leave your computer on all day and night, you're using more electricity and thus burning more fossil fuels to get that electricity to your house to power your device. So you can go through they offer a couple of different options that you can choose what you currently do and then what you might be comfortable doing. Say, if you leave it on all day, every day now, you might commit to turning it off every Friday night or every night when you're done with work. It can, again, save you money. It's free to do that. It's free to use the power management features. And also you can save CO2 from being emitted into the environment. And there are other options here in terms of washing and drying our clothes, right? We all have to do laundry. So if you currently wash your clothes in hot water, you're actually using fossil fuels because that hot water gets hot because your hot water tank is working and, you know, burning gas or burning fuel to get that water hot. So you can save money and lower your carbon footprint by making these changes. So again, this is just you know, a calculator that you can use. It's more extensive than this if you go through the full calculator here at the bottom of the screen. This is a link to the calculator. But I just wanted to go through a section to give you an idea of the different things that they're suggesting, as well as changes that you can make right away that cost nothing or just cost a couple dollars. So let's move on to another way and another choice that we can make every day. Choosing to reduce the amount of time that we spend in the shower. So again, this is very individual. Some of us take quick showers. Some tend to like, some folks tend to like to spend a little bit more time in the shower. But let me just give you some food for thought. So according to the 2016 residential use of water study, and yes, that is a thing, nationally, the number of gallons used per minute in a shower is 2 gallons of water per minute. So every moment you spend kind of luxuriating under that hot water, every minute is wasting 2 gallons of water. So the average American shower uses about, for the full length of the shower, you're looking at about 16 gallons. So that's a lot of water, and especially a lot of hot water that is wasted. Again, energy is used by your hot water tank to make your hot water hot. It doesn't just come out of the shower like that. So your hot water tank has to kick on and work to make that water hot, usually burning fossil fuels to do that work. And then it comes out of your shower head and you can adjust the temperature. So again, thinking about, do I really need to spend 20 minutes in the shower every day? Because that is, I don't know, if you're spending 20 minutes times 40 gallons of water, that's quite a bit of quite a bit of water for a single shower. If you have multiple people living in your house using the shower every day, that's a lot of water that is wasted. So if you can, something that you can do that costs nothing, use a bucket in the shower to catch all of that typically discarded cold water that comes out of the shower head before you jump into the shower. So it's cold, it's just going straight down the drain. You can use that for watering houseplants or watering your garden. Again, the goal is making use of all the resources that we have available to us in a sustainable way. So we know that taking a long shower creates CO2 emissions because we're burning those fossil fuels to get that water hot. So the EPA also highlights that running a hot water faucet for just 5 minutes uses about the same amount of energy as burning a 60-watt bulb for 14 hours. And again, it's just going straight down the drain. So this is a decision that you can make every day. Typically, the recommended shower time to be as efficient as possible and to lower your carbon footprint is about 5 minutes. So it's like a challenge, the 5-minute shower challenge. Leave your phone in the bathroom with a timer on and see if you can make that challenge work for you. You might find that that's all you need. You just need 5 minutes and you're in and out. But test it out, see how it feels for you. It can make a big impact on your carbon footprint as well as your electricity, as well as your bills, your hot water bills, heating that water to come out of the faucet. So this is the updated reduce, reuse, recycle mantra we were kind of used to. It's now the 5 R's of recycling and reducing waste. We start off with refuse. So this may be tough for some of us, but we need to make the decision to refuse what we do not need. Say no. If you don't need something, if you don't really need it, say no to it. It's better for your wallet and it's better for the environment because there's no waste happening. Reduce. Basically, buy less stuff. Reduce the amount of things and stuff that you're bringing into your life, your home, your office space. And that also relates to reducing the carbon emissions for getting things that we don't need to travel all the way across the country to reach us. So we're reducing the things that we're using, and in that we're reducing the carbon emissions of big tankers and big airplanes and trucks getting all of these things to us. Reuse really means investing in reusable items. So switching up one-use disposable items for reusable or permanent alternatives. We're going to get into detail about different types of reusable items in just a little bit. Recycle. Basically, this means we're limiting what goes out of our house. We're trying to reduce the amount of stuff that we have to recycle, because if we're not sending as much stuff to the recycling bin, that means we're fully using and making the most of what we consume. We may think that we're doing our part simply by recycling, but actually the goal should be to limit the amount of plastic and recyclable materials we purchase in the first place. Many companies are hearing this message and selling products in their more pure form. So without reusable or with reusable packaging instead of plastic, wrap, or single-use plastic. So finally, the 5th R is rot. Some of us may already be doing this, but this basically means committing to composting what we can't reduce, reuse, or recycle. Composting might sound a little bit scary, but there are a lot of different ways to make it work for you, even if you live in an apartment or place without a backyard. So we're going to explore some more ways that we can actively reduce our carbon footprint and make sustainable choices, really with the goal of being mindful about what we are buying. So even before we purchase something, something as simple as like a candy bar or something as big as a new computer, before we buy it, we really need to ask ourselves, do I need this? Do I need this thing? Can this item and its packaging be reused or recycled when I'm done with it? If not, maybe think twice about purchasing that thing. How much do you really need it if it's just going to, half of it's going to end up in a landfill? You can also think about borrowing the item from a friend or family member before buying a brand new item of your own, or even purchasing a gently used or secondhand version of the item instead. Typically is much more cost effective, so easier on your wallet, as well as more sustainable for the environment. So again, I think that a lot of people have issues with consumption in general. Some people equate things with happiness, but stuff does not lead to happiness. Often the people with the most stuff are the most stressed because they have so much stuff to keep in order and keep track of. You may feel a little boost of excitement when you buy something new, but research has shown that that feeling eventually fades and cycles back to just wanting something new to satisfy the spending urge. It's a really vicious cycle and something that we'll dive into a little bit more when we discuss fast fashion. But for some things, it's very possible to buy a secondhand item and it's going to work just as well for you. And again, it's going to be a more sustainable choice. So when we think about, before we spend your next dollar, right? Before you go out and purchase something, ask yourself, do I actually need this thing? And see what comes up. See what alternatives you can think of before buying something brand new. Even testing out this little challenge for even a day, before you go online and go shopping, think about it. Let it sit in the cart for a while. Do I actually need this? And see how you feel. It can be a really eye-opening experience because we find out, am I buying something because I need it or because I think I want it and it'll make me feel better? Okay, so I am going to share another video created by a fantastic organization called Plastic Free. And they have a great campaign called Plastic Free July. So let's hear a little bit about that.
So what's Plastic Free July? It's about learning to make small changes, just choosing to refuse the single-use plastics we use every day. Plastic Free July, it's a personal challenge that's part of a global effort.
For the ocean.
For cleaner streets.
For the planet.
Choose one single-use plastic to avoid, and you'll soon discover another plastic and another great solution. By making one small change, you can make a real difference, and there's so many other changes you can try. Buy unpackaged products.
I'm learning how to bake.
Or start taking reusable bags when you shop.
The kids love going to our local farmers market.
Do Plastic Free July at home.
Or at school.
I'm doing it at work.
I got my local cafe involved.
And a whole community joined in. Plastic Free July invites you to choose to refuse one single-use plastic. And with the help of over 120 million other people across the world, we can make a difference. The change you try, that's your Plastic Free July choice.
Okay. So again, their campaign for Plastic Free July is about choosing at least one single-use plastic to refuse. You're going to refuse to use single-use plastic during that month. For many people, that change ends up extending to the rest of the year and throughout the rest of their lives. Plastic Free Foundation focuses on the impact, the environmental impact of plastic, which is a relatively new item. It was actually invented in New York in 1907, by a person named Leo Baekeland, who coined the term plastics. Since then, plastic has been used widely throughout the world and in many different industries because it's cheap and it's easy to make. But plastic has had a major impact on the environment. At this point, we've probably all seen the videos of the sea animals with plastic straws stuck in their mouths and noses. It's really heartbreaking. We see the impact of the widespread single-use plastic. So I really love that this organization is committing to giving people the tools to stop. So sometimes it's as simple as saying no. If you go out for coffee or go out for, you know, getting something to drink, you can just say, save the straw. If you're at a restaurant, save the straw. I don't need it. I don't need a plastic fork or knife. Bring along your own utensils. And we're going to look at some great alternatives in just a minute. But yeah, I thought this was a really cool video and something to think about. Again, how much plastic are we really using on the day-to-day? Probably a lot. So this is a snippet of the Plastic Free Foundation's website. They have a great interactive platform where you can basically choose a setting that you'd like to focus on. You can just do an overall getting started, like just a general learn more about the impacts of plastic. But if you want to focus on how to reduce plastic consumption at work, at school, or in the rest of your life, you could just click on one of these different items and it'll bring up a list of different ways, different alternatives to single-use plastic. So I just thought that was so cool because they make it real. You know, they say instead of buying a bunch of balloons or plastic, single-use plastic decorations, celebrate in style with plastic-free decorations. And then they give you ideas and will show you how you can make your own or other alternatives that you can buy. Again, a really cool one that they focus on is when we go to the supermarket, we're kind of conditioned in the produce section to pick up one of those plastic produce bags. Even if they're really annoying to get open and we only use them for really a couple seconds. We put the fresh produce in the bag, we put it in our cart, we put it on the, we put it up at the register, and then we throw it out when we get home. Super wasteful. So instead of that, there's other alternatives that you can use and just say no thanks to the plastic bag altogether. So again, really great resource. This is on the resources slide at the end of this webinar, so you'll have this information to check out on your own time and dig in a little bit deeper. For now, I'd like to move on to a discussion about fast fashion. Some of us may have heard of this, and I think just like we want to ask ourselves the question of need versus want before we shop, we especially need to keep that in mind before we shop for clothing. Our goal should really be, and I just love this quote from Vivienne Westwood, we want to buy less, choose well, and make it last. That sounds really good to me. If you have something that's of substance and really great quality, you don't need to constantly switch it out every season. So again, this is what we're really focusing on when we think about sustainable fashion. So let's jump into a discussion on that. Fast fashion really is cheap, trendy clothing. It caters to that person that we might know who always has to buy a new outfit for a special occasion or would never be caught in a photograph in the same outfit twice. That person is definitely on the fast fashion bandwagon. They are purchasing cheap, trendy clothes in order to keep up with the trends. These garments, fast fashion pieces, are made very, very quickly and are tended to be some kind of knockoff of maybe a designer brand or something that a celebrity was spotted wearing. And really, the fact is that the clothing industry is one of the world's biggest polluters. And the manufacturing processes are very, very hard on our natural planet's resources. The fashion industry cares about getting the latest fashions out. So shoppers can snap them up while they're still at the height of their popularity. But then they end up being discarded after just a couple wears because this clothing is not meant to last. It's meant to be cycled through very quickly. So the garments are typically poorly made and they end up falling apart. And then and going into a landfill, which is not good for our planet at all because a lot of these clothes are made with different materials that don't break down as easily. They're not natural materials. So the fast fashion cycle forms a key part of the toxic system of overproduction, so making more than we need, and the consumption that has made fashion one of the biggest polluters in the world. It wasn't always this way. Back in the 1800s, fashion was very slow. You had to source your own materials like wool or leather, prepare them, dye them, weave them, and then make them into clothes that people could wear. And then the Industrial Revolution kicked in with new technology like the sewing machine, and clothes were easier and quicker and much cheaper to make. Again, nowadays fast fashion pieces are made up of a lot of polyester, which is actually derived from fossil fuels and contributes to global warming and can shed little tiny microfibers of plastic into our washing machines and into our drinking water. So I hope that I've established the environmental impact of fast fashion and of supporting the fast fashion industry. Let's get into how fast fashion can impact human beings throughout the world. So the folks who are making these fast fashion pieces are working in typically very dangerous environments for low wages and without basic human rights. Further down the supply chain, there are the farmers who may work with toxic chemicals that can have devastating impact on their health and mental health. This was highlighted in a documentary called The True Cost. So if you're interested in these issues, you may want to check that out. And according to a recent study, 75 million people are making our clothes today, with 80% of apparel being made by young women between the ages of 18 and 24. In Bangladesh, fast fashion capital of the world, one of the fast fashion capitals of the world, it's mostly women of this age that are making just about $96 a month, which is 3 times lower than the government's recommended wage in order to live a decent life with very basic facilities. So they're underpaid, overworked, and this is not just in Bangladesh. This is not just in India. Countries throughout the world. There's been recent evidence of forced human and child labor in the fast fashion industry in a variety of countries, and this is real. You know, it's affecting our environment as well as different human beings throughout the world in different countries. Fast fashion kind of makes us believe we need to shop more and stay on trend. So this creates, again, this constant cycle of need, but then ultimately dissatisfaction. So I'm asking everybody on the call today to really, again, think about, before they purchase their next piece of clothing, think about, do I need it or do I just want it? Do I need it? Do I want it? We can choose to end that cycle of environmental and human harm. So let's look at this graphic. I think really reinforces the amount of clothing that we waste worldwide. So when we look at basically this World Resources Institute calculates that about a garbage truck full of clothes are burned or added to landfills every second of every day. Each year we generate enough clothing waste to fill 1.5 Empire State Buildings every day. And that's enough to fill the Sydney Harbor every year. So again, these fast fashion pieces, like I said, are not meant to last and be with us for years. They're not cherished pieces of clothing. They are very poorly made, low quality clothes that are cycled through quickly. So again, we can end this cycle. We don't want this stuff to end up in landfills or burned, which creates different carbon emissions in the environment, is not good for our planet. So there is another great organization called Love Your Clothes that provides very functional advice on how to make your clothes last, how you can care for and repair your clothing, and how to even refashion or upcycle the clothes that you currently have. So this goes along with the Oxfam hashtag for September, Secondhand September. So if you've ever gone to a thrift store, you know the joy of finding like your perfect piece, just a beloved piece of clothing in amongst all the other pieces. So this hashtag kind of celebrates that feeling. And When you buy secondhand, typically this stuff is very gently used. There may be a misconception that if you go to a thrift store, the clothing is very worn out or dirty. Not so. Often it is, if there are any, threads missing or holes, things like that, those are sometimes repaired, they're cleaned, and the clothing is vetted before it's added to the shelves at thrift stores and consignment stores. So check it out. Check out a secondhand shop in your community and see what you can find. You might find some real gems in there. And if you do need some ideas for how to spruce up your clothes or what you can do with clothes that you just do not want anymore, you can go to loveyourclothes.org and check out their different resources. So going back to kind of single-use items, this relates to the poll that we participated in earlier. When we make choices, instead of single-use water bottles, so I'm thinking of the typical Poland Spring bottle, we can instead invest in a reusable water bottle. Typically glass or metal, stainless steel is our best bet. Because again, even a reusable plastic water bottle still may be leaching those little plastic microbes into the water that we're going to drink. Instead of plastic straws, single-use plastic straws, we can opt for stainless steel or bamboo straws. Paper napkins, just say no to those. You can invest in some cotton napkins that can be thrown in with the rest of your wash. So these are just some of the different options that we can explore. We don't have to do all of them, but let's be real. These choices that we're making every day have serious consequences on our environment, and they also impact our wallet. So if we're going to keep going to Costco and buying tons of paper towels every month, that's going to be a much more heavy price than investing in a couple cotton washable dish towels that we can, just rinse and reuse every time we need them. So I think that a lot of the times investing in these reusable products is way cheaper in the long run. So it's a win-win-win. You waste less, you don't spend as much money, and you're going to feel better about the choices you're making because they're sustainable. If you have other suggestions for reducing waste and consumption, please put those in the questions box right now. We would love to see them. You can chat with your fellow webinar attendees and share some ideas, because we could all use some good ways to reduce our waste and be a little bit more sustainable. And that's really the message. We're reducing our individual waste. We're not bringing as much stuff into our house. We're just going to end up throwing out or recycling later. So it's good for our environment, and we are going to save money. Making these changes could feel overwhelming at first, but you can opt to make one small change every day or every week. And ultimately, these decisions that you make every day can build up into your everyday life and become a habit. So that's really what we want to keep in mind. It can help lower our carbon footprint and lower our out-of-pocket costs. A couple more alternatives. We have the traditional Clorox wipes. I'm sure everybody's seen those all over the place. Instead of the Clorox wipes, which have their own patented brand of chemicals, we can actually make our own reusable disinfectant cleaning wipes. Because Clorox wipes are single use, right? We can't put them back in the container and use them later. Once they've been used, they have to be thrown out. But these wipes, you can see here, this is a reusable cloth, and you can make your own cleaning solution that doesn't have the chemicals, the very high-powered chemicals that Clorox does. So also good for people who have sensitivity to different chemical smells or cleaners. For all of the babysitters, nannies, and parents out there, instead of the single-use traditional diaper, we can opt for these adorable printed reusable cloth diapers. These have become super popular recently. Again, you can get them in all kinds of prints all over the place, but these end up in a landfill, and these can be thrown in the wash and reused again and again. Also, instead of our typical plastic shampoos that come in plastic bottles. A lot of different companies are now offering quote unquote naked or unpackaged products. So when we think of cosmetics, we might immediately think of a lot of little different pieces of plastic, but companies like Lush, for example, are leaning more towards just, this is actually a shampoo bar. So it doesn't come in a plastic bottle. These are different little shampoos and conditioners that can be used just by sudsing them up in your hands and putting them right straight onto your scalp. So something to think about. Again, this is something for you to explore. If you want to keep using your herbal essences, that's fine, but maybe look at the rest of your beauty regimen and see where you can remove some of the products that are very heavy on plastics. And no matter what, whether you're looking at this list or this list, always make use of the products that you currently have before investing in new products. Why is that? Because we don't want to throw out a perfectly good bottle of Clorox wipes just to make our own disinfectant wipes. We need to use what we've already consumed and then move forward later with purchasing the more sustainable products. Use what you have before you go for more. Okay, and Clean Canteen is a great option for a totally plastic-free water bottle. There's not a single piece of plastic on this product. It's a stainless steel container with a bamboo top. Again, these are this is a great option for personal utensils that are reusable. You've got your stainless steel straws, bamboo straw, and then bamboo cutlery and chopsticks. They come into this, they roll up into a nice little package you can pop in your backpack or purse and use them on the go. Really great. Instead of a Ziploc bag, here you have a really great printed reusable snack pack. So one less Ziploc bag in a landfill, that is a win. And these are the silicone reusable sandwich snack bags that I mentioned before. Honestly, these are so widely available now, I think Target stocks them. And then here we have the reusable produce bags. So if you want to make sure your produce is organized in your cart and not just flying all over the place, these are a great option, these mesh bags, instead of using the single-use produce bags that are at the grocery store. And no matter what, make sure you're using what you already have and make sure that you use every product as thoroughly as you can before you dispose of them properly. All right, and just a note about our, we have an ongoing health crisis. We are all still wearing masks when we're out in public, in stores, or with people that we don't live with. Unfortunately, I think these blue single-use masks have become the #1 litter item of 2020. I feel like I see them in every gutter and every parking lot that I've been in lately. It is important to wear a mask. So again, if you have a huge pack of these masks at home, use them, but then maybe think about investing in a reusable face mask that you can put in with the rest of your wash, thoroughly clean, and use again. This is one of those things where every day that you're going out, you have a choice to make. Are you going to use something that's single use and tossed into a landfill, or are you going to be conscious about the types of products that you're using? So making a sustainable choice here, even as far as like something like wearing a face mask, can make a huge difference. It's really up to you. So a couple specific tips for reducing our waste at home. Again, I think that something we want to stress is making use of everything that we buy, right? So this little graphic at the bottom right-hand corner is don't throw it out, throw it in. And then you see the graphic of a big pot on a stove and all these different ingredients floating above. I like to take stock of all of the groceries in my fridge. I like to know what's there, and I like to know, is it going to go off? Is it going to, do I need to eat it soon? If so, get creative in how you're prepping your meals. Don't just let something go to waste, or don't just, trash it. Also, get familiar with the difference between the sell by date, best by date, and different ways to assess if a food product is still safe to eat. We have a fantastic archive webinar on kitchen safety, which I invite you to check out. But just because something has a sell by date does not mean that you can't eat it. It just means that they needed to get it off the shelves by that date. So again, I think it's cool that you can kind of take stock of what you have and make a new dish. You can throw all of your random veggies and produce items into a stew, soup, quiche, or stir fry. You can also Google recipes that feature the particular ingredient or food item that you need to use as soon as possible and get to know how to prepare a new dish. Because especially in the US, we waste a ton of food, tons and tons of food. So be mindful about what you're actually bringing home when you go grocery shopping and make use of what you bring home. Again, I think we talked about another note on kind of meal planning, meal prep. You can, if it's helpful for you, create a meal plan every week and really stick with it so you know exactly what you need and when you're going to prepare it. And just keep in mind, the more fresh food that we purchase and eat means less packaging coming home with us. Because when you go to the produce section, all the fruits and veggies are just out there typically. Some of them are packaged up or boxed up, but often there is a bare alternative to it. So go with that. The less packaging, the better. And also less takeout means less single-use waste in your house. So think about that before placing your next takeout order. You can also tell the restaurant where you're getting takeout that you do not need any cutlery or sauces or condiments, things like that, because that will also reduce the waste that goes out of your house. If you're not going to use it, say no to it, refuse it. If you buy in bulk, because that is available in most grocery stores, you can store your items in reusable containers. I love reusing glass jars, jelly jars, tomato sauce jars. They are fantastic for storing our snacks and different items in our pantry. And another great tip is don't keep buying paper towels if you can use older towels or clothing that is no longer suitable to wear as cleaning cloths. It's a really great way to reduce the amount of paper towel waste that you produce doing something good, cleaning your home. So yeah, just a couple more tips about that. And I do want to also share some resources about composting. This is really going to take a little bit of research depending on where you live and your comfort level with this. But you can check out these resources and decide if composting is right for you. Composting is really taking a little bit more control over the waste that you produce at home by using vegetable scraps, tea, coffee grinds, eggshells, things like that, putting it into a specific place and waiting for it to compost or break down naturally. The compost can then be used for a bunch of different things, but especially feeding a garden or even feeding your houseplants. So these are some really great links. I urge you to check those out if you have any interest in the topic. And if we look at tips for reducing waste at work, do not print what you can save or distribute digitally. A lot of us just need to forward things via email, so do that instead of printing out the information that you were going to share. But if you do need to print, please use both sides of the paper. Sometimes this means adjusting the settings on your printer at work, so just being mindful of making that choice before you go to print. If the option is available to you, utilize a digital calendar or notepad instead of a paper pad or calendar. And if you still prefer to use a paper calendar or notepad, that's fine. Just make sure to purchase one that's made from post-consumer recycled paper and recycle it properly when you're done. Another tip for reducing waste at work is packing your own lunch, because again, this cuts down on the single-use waste that might result from getting takeout or a takeaway order from your favorite restaurant. You can also turn your computer off at night. And also bring your own water bottle to work. Bring your own coffee mug to work. And little bonus tip here, one of my favorite coffee spots, Starbucks, actually offers a discount, a very small discount for bringing your own mug, tumbler, or coffee cup with you. So you can save a couple bucks, or save a couple bucks by bringing your own coffee. But if you want to go treat yourself, you can also save money by bringing your own coffee container. So yeah, these are just a couple more ideas that we can think about if we're back in the office, or even, you know, as we're working at home a little bit more, we can also incorporate these ideas into our home offices. So I'm going to pause here and see if there are any questions. Okay, awesome. Thank you all for sharing product suggestions. We really appreciate that. Share the knowledge. This is definitely a topic where you'd be amazed at how much is out there, you know, researching online or talking to friends and family. And I love sharing these ideas because this is, again, something that is really within all of our reach. We can make these choices and ultimately impact our lives and the, you know, health of our planet. So just a quick plug for the New Jersey Self-Advocacy Project email list. This is a direct link to join our email list. So you can click here if you'd like to receive NJSAP newsletters. We have 3 wonderful newsletters that go out every month. Event information, HLP live info, as well as information for the webinars. So I invite you to join. And if you'd like to join an upcoming session of our Healthy Lifestyles Project Live, this is a live link. You can register here. We have a great yoga session happening tomorrow. And we've got some really amazing topics coming up for the next couple weeks. We are on Zoom every Wednesday from 11 a.m. till 12 p.m. These sessions are free. Some are capped. We have a certain attendance for certain sessions, but please check them out and see if any of them pique your interest. And as always, all of our information is available across our social media platforms, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And this is a breakdown of the different virtual activities that we offer every week. So we like to think there's a little something for everybody. And I hope that in addition to our Training Tuesdays, our Stay Healthy at Home webinar series, I hope you'll join us for another virtual activity throughout the week, because we are still here for you. We appreciate the participation and welcome any questions, comments, or suggestions for future webinar topics. So again, I invite you to participate in the survey that will happen at the end of this webinar. Thank you all so much for participating. We really appreciate it, and I hope to see you at the next webinar.